Newcastle United faces one of the most significant infrastructure decisions in the club's 132-year history. After decades playing at the iconic St. James Park, the Magpies must choose between a comprehensive redevelopment of their historic home or constructing a spectacular new stadium. With matchday demand at unprecedented levels and the club's ambitions growing under new ownership, this decision will shape Newcastle's future for generations. Welcome to Big Builds. St. James Park has served as Newcastle United's spiritual home since the stadium first opened in 1892. The venue sits dramatically on a hillside in the heart of Newcastle city centre, creating one of English football's most distinctive and intimidating atmospheres. By 1899, the first major upgrade increased capacity to 30,000 spectators. In 1905, construction of what is now known as the Milburn Stand doubled the stadium's capacity to 60,000, making St. James Park one of the largest and most advanced venues in the country at that time. The most significant transformation came in the 1990s. Following the Taylor Report and new seating safety regulations, St. James's Park underwent a dramatic capacity reduction. By 1995, the all-seater configuration had brought capacity down to just 36,610, less than half of what it had once been. It was during this period that Sir John Hall, the club's chairman at the time, presented a controversial plan to relocate Newcastle United to a brand new stadium at Leazes Park. However, supporters fiercely opposed abandoning their historic home. Instead, the club chose to invest significantly in St. James's Park. In 2000, Newcastle committed between £42 million and £46 million to a major expansion project that extended both the Milburn and Leazes stands, transforming them into impressive three-tier structures. When work completed, the stadium's capacity had risen to approximately 52,300. At the time of completion, St. James's Park briefly ranked as the third largest stadium in England, a source of immense pride for the club and the city. But as football evolved through the 20s, that relative standing shifted significantly. Today, St. James's Park ranks as approximately the 7th or 8th largest football stadium in England, depending on hospitality adjustments at various venues. It sits ahead of Sunderland's Stadium of Light, which holds approximately 49,000. Since the transformative takeover by the Public Investment Fund in October 2021, Newcastle United has experienced remarkable resurgence. The club qualified for the UEFA Champions League in the 2022-2023 season and has established itself as England's 7th major footballing power, a member of what some call the Big Seven, alongside Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham Hotspur. This sporting success has intensified pressure on stadium infrastructure dramatically. The demand for tickets at St. James Park is unprecedented. Newcastle United currently sells approximately 32,000 season tickets, a figure that hasn't changed significantly despite overwhelming interest. When the club released a new batch of season tickets in 2021, tens of thousands of supporters applied within hours. Current estimates suggest that between 88,000 and 150,000 registered members are unable to secure tickets for matches on a regular basis. Increasing capacity would generate significant additional revenue for the club and would allow more supporters to witness the team's renaissance firsthand. Newcastle United's leadership now stands at a crossroads, weighing two dramatically different paths forward. Peter Silverstone, the club's chief commercial officer, recently acknowledged the magnitude of the choice facing the board. In a public statement, he said the club is at that point where they're deciding whether it's best to renovate and reinvigorate St. James's Park or build a new stadium. He noted this is a decision which will be made relatively soon. However, his perspective appears to contrast with remarks made by Brad Miller, Newcastle's chief operating officer, in November 2024. Miller emphasized the unique advantages of St. James's Park's current setup, noting the brilliant thing about the stadium is its iconic location, the atmosphere, and it has 52,000 seats already. He pointed out that a new stadium doesn't have that, and the club would have to pay for all those seats again. The first option involves a redevelopment of St. James Park. This approach would see the club remain at its historic home while undertaking major expansion to increase capacity, improve facilities, and modernize the stadium. The plan currently being discussed involves adding approximately 12,000 to 15,000 seats, which would lift the stadium's total capacity to around 65,000. If completed, this would make St. James's Park the third largest stadium in the Premier League, surpassed only by Old Trafford and London Stadium. The focal point of the expansion would be the Gallowgate End, one of the most famous stands in English football. Under the proposed redevelopment, the Gallowgate stand would be significantly enlarged, adding around 9,000 seats and bringing its total capacity to over 20,000. This would create a towering, intimidating wall of supporters behind one goal, similar in concept to Borussia Dortmund's iconic Yellow Wall. However, expanding St. James's Park is far from straightforward. The stadium is hemmed in on all sides by the city's infrastructure, and the most significant obstacle lies behind the East Stand. A row of historic Georgian buildings, specifically Leazes Terrace, which holds Grade 1 listed status, sits directly adjacent to the stadium on this side. Making any substantial extension of the East Stand is nearly impossible without demolishing or relocating these protected structures. Given this constraint, the redevelopment plan would likely involve only modest upgrades to the East Stand. The Milburn and Leazes stands, which were rebuilt in 2000, already feature three-tier structures and are relatively modern by English football standards. While some interior upgrades and improved hospitality facilities are likely, these stands would not require the same level of structural intervention as the Gallowgate End. One more ambitious but technically challenging possibility has been discussed: elevating the pitch and shifting it closer to the Milburn-Leazes side of the stadium. This would effectively create additional space on the East Stand side, allowing for some expansion without encroaching on the Georgian buildings. However, this would be a significant architectural and engineering challenge involving reconfiguration of the playing surface, drainage systems, and underground infrastructure. It would also likely add substantial cost and complexity to the project. The estimated cost for redeveloping St. James Park ranges between £800 million and £1 billion. This figure reflects the complexity of expanding a confined urban site, the need to maintain operations during construction, and the expense of modern stadium infrastructure. The redevelopment would be funded through a combination of owner investment and club debt, according to reports from September 2025 in the Daily Mail. The second option is to build a brand new stadium. This path would allow Newcastle United to design a world-class venue without the constraints of the current site, offering potential for greater capacity, superior facilities, and a modern matchday experience. According to reports, the proposed new stadium would hold approximately 70,000 spectators, making it one of the largest club stadiums in England. The preferred location for this ambitious project is Leazes Park, a historic public green space located just north of St. James's Park. It was the same location proposed by Sir John Hall in the 1990s, a plan ultimately abandoned due to fan opposition and logistical concerns. Now, more than 3 decades later, the idea has re-emerged with renewed backing from the club's ownership. The proximity to the current stadium is seen as a key advantage, as it would allow Newcastle to maintain a strong presence in the city centre. However, building a new stadium at Leazes Park would face significant resistance. In March 2025, Save Newcastle Wildlife warned that construction at Leazes Park could negatively affect the city's environment and biodiversity. By June 2025, an online petition opposing the stadium plans had gathered more than 28,000 signatures, reflecting the depth of local concern. The club would need to navigate a complex planning process, engage with community stakeholders, and secure approval from local authorities, none of which can be taken for granted. The estimated cost for building a brand new 70,000-seat stadium ranges between £2.2 billion and £3 billion. At the higher end of estimates, this would become the most expensive stadium ever built in England and the second most expensive in the world, surpassed only by the $5 billion SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Like the redevelopment option, the new stadium would be funded through a combination of owner investment and club debt, rather than being fully financed by the ownership group. The timeline for either project is ambitious. Newcastle officials have indicated that a final decision on which path to pursue could be announced in 2025. Once a decision is made, the club would enter a 2-year period of detailed planning, consultations, and securing necessary approvals from local authorities. Following this preparatory phase, construction itself is expected to take between 3 and 4 years. This means a new or redeveloped stadium could realistically open sometime between 2030 and 2031. The financial upside is substantial. Newcastle United generated approximately £40 million in matchday revenue during the 2023-2024 season. Expanding St. James Park to 65,000 seats would increase that figure to around £55 million per season, a boost of £15 million annually. Building a brand new 70,000-seat stadium with enhanced hospitality and commercial spaces could push matchday revenue to approximately £100 million per season, more than doubling the club's current income. Over the lifespan of the stadium, these increases would amount to hundreds of millions of pounds in additional revenue. For Newcastle United supporters, the decision represents more than just business calculations. St. James's Park embodies the club's identity and connection to the city. The stadium's location in the heart of Newcastle, visible from miles around, makes it a symbol of the city itself. Many fans view abandoning this historic ground as unthinkable, regardless of the potential benefits of a new facility. Others recognize that modern football's financial realities may require difficult choices to remain competitive at the highest levels. As Newcastle United approaches this crossroads, the decision will be influenced by numerous factors beyond simple capacity calculations. The club must balance sporting ambitions, financial sustainability, supporter sentiment, community impact, and environmental considerations. Whether they choose to transform their historic home or build a spectacular new venue, the next chapter promises to be transformative for one of English football's most passionate clubs. Big Builds will continue following Newcastle United's stadium decision closely as plans develop and the club moves toward a final determination. We'll provide comprehensive coverage of architectural concepts, planning approvals, and construction progress once the project moves forward. For ongoing coverage of major stadium developments across English football and beyond, subscribe to Big Builds and enable notifications to stay informed on all the latest construction news.